Hello, everyone, and welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. And we have a special guest here with us tonight, Paul Meharry, who literally I called 5 minutes ago because we had a little internal miscommunication on our end of who's going to be helping me out on the show here tonight. And Jed and Trent are elsewhere doing some things. And Paul is a team player and literally sprinted upstairs and is able to help me with the show. So, Paul, welcome to Rumors versus Facts.
Hey, man, great to be on, man. You know, I've heard a lot about this show. I was in the middle of watching Tiger King, so you're lucky. I was catching up, man, but there's some catching up to do on the recruiting trail too, Blaine.
No doubt.
A little catching up.
How about, everybody's going to want to talk about, and we're going to tease it here. Yes, as long as we can. Everybody's going to want to talk about Roddy Nabulsi dropping a nuclear bomb over on the UGA Sports Vault, which, by the way, if you're not a member, those are the kind of things you miss out on when you're not over there, because guys like Roddy, who, never even comments on recruiting, comes out of nowhere and drops some of the biggest news of the year potentially. So we're just gonna tease that, Paul. We're gonna let it simmer because I'm sure we're gonna have some questions. But we in our group chat and things like that, Paul, we kind of just make comments and stuff, and even us who we follow this daily and we see things and we hear momentum and talk to players and prospects and coaches of players. It's still shocking to see the level that Georgia is recruiting at, especially at the defensive back, in the secondary. I mean, it is unbelievable to the next level right now. You've been around UGA sports a lot longer than I have. What are your
8 years? Yeah. I need a raise. Roddy, are you watching?
What are your kind of thoughts on what Will Muschamp and Jamila Dye, Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, all these guys are doing on the back end of that defense recruiting wise?
It's unreal, Blaine. I mean, you look at the cornerbacks they have committed right now, just Singletary, Humphrey, Marquis, MGK. I mean, you can go down the list, and then you got Ja'Cory Stevens. I mean,
Ja'Cory Thomas.
Excuse me. Yeah.
There's probably been a Ja'Cory Stevens during your 8 years.
There was a Jacoby Stevens that went to LSU. He was really good. Georgia was after him, if anybody in the chat is remembering him. But no, yeah, they've done an incredible job, Blaine. And to think that it might not be over yet is probably the craziest part to me, right?
Oh, yeah.
You've got a guy in Kamari Wilson who Georgia's leading for heavily. This seems like any day the ball could drop on that. Who's a 23 kid that visited TM?
Tony Mitchell. He's the top corner in the country, maybe, him and AJ Harris kind of going back and forth.
Which Georgia's in on both of those guys for the class of 2023. I mean, it seemed like, and we talked about this from the beginning, for Georgia's defense, their secondary wasn't going to be that great, and that was the whole thing. Keely Ringo stepped up in a huge way this year. There's going to be playing time, though, next year. Who fills in when Lewis Seen goes to the NFL? Who fills in for Chris Smith? Does Dan Jackson come back? There's a lot of moving pieces in that secondary. And does Brittany come back? There's a lot of places that are going to need holes filled, and Georgia's doing that with their recruiting in the class of 2022. I'm not saying these guys are going to play right away, Blaine, but you've seen the progression.
A couple of them might play right away.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the progression, how quick Ringo got on the field, even with his surgery that he had. And he came on and started pretty much day one from a
from the time that he was healthy.
Right. From a technical standpoint. So, it's insane. And I don't think they're finished yet. Is that a good tease?
Oh yeah. Now okay. we've all had future cast in, a lot of us, for Kamari Wilson, even going all the way back to June. I mean, it seemed like he could pop at any time, and it feels like Georgia is doing a good job there. With Kamari Wilson, everybody should feel kind of good about where that stands. The young man, I don't blame him. You only get recruited one time, right? For a lot of people now sometimes it's 2 and 3 times with the transfer portal, but we're going to say for just being naive and saying, hey, you're going to stay the same place for 4 years. You get recruited one time, enjoy it, go through that process. So it's
I know
really,
I would.
oh
I
yeah,
would.
I would too. You get to go through and see the process. So I think that's kind of what he's doing there. But before we get too much further into some of the official visits that occurred this past weekend and stuff like that, we did want to say the show is presented by Dead Soxy, and they have Georgia scored 56 points. Roddy talked him into this promo deal where
Yeah,
up
got
to
him good.
up to 60 points, they would do as high as a 60% discount. Well, Georgia put 56 on the board on Charleston Southern. So you can get 56% off using the promo code SCOREDOGS. And I'll put that down across the bottom here in a minute, but that's SCORRDAWGS. If you're listening via the podcast format, Score Dogs, of course, the podcast format, it'll be gone. So you need to be here live tonight and take advantage of that deal right here for Dead Soxy. Score Dogs, that's SCORRDAWGS. And, Paul, I don't know if you've got any of the Dead Soxy, socks yet, man, but I've got some of the red and black ones that Roddy did me in the gift bag there kind of deal, and I'm gonna go be getting some more. I've seen them in some stores in Blue Ridge, up in the mountains, some other stores around the Northeast Georgia area. I'm gonna definitely be scoring me some of those as well.
Yeah, I think they're a great Christmas gift,
No doubt,
especially if you can get it 56% off.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting at that time. It's almost time for Thanksgiving. My son, he's all excited because that's when the elf shows up, as after Thanksgiving.
You do the elf on the shelf?
Hey, listen, I don't know what you're talking about doing the elf on the shelf. The elf just shows up, Paul, and he does all kinds of chaos in the house. So that's nice. That's happening. Clyde the elf will be here after Thanksgiving. But did want to talk about, we touched right off the bat, the title of this show, Elite Defensive Secondary Recruiting, right? Elite Secondary Recruiting. So Jaheim Singletary committed last night, the number one corner in the country. Julian Humphrey was before that. We talked about Kamari Wilson still out there. You talked about Ja'Cory Thomas, who's been doing some great things, of course. And MGK, Marquise Groves Killebrew, he tore his ACL there at North Cobb, but an extremely talented athlete. He'll make a great comeback there. So Georgia's in good shape, and like I said, they're going to be probably adding more, and I'm sure we'll get there in our questions. But the other thing I want to talk about, Paul, before we got to the questions, is there were some official visits that occurred this weekend.
Yes.
Had Demario Tolan, who's an LSU commit at the linebacker position. He currently plays outside linebacker in terms of what he does in high school, but he's going to end up going more towards the inside if he goes to Georgia. They did an interview with him recapping his visit. It's over on UGASports.com, so make sure to go check it out. But, Paul, it's got to be an interesting dynamic if you're a guy like Demario Tolan right now, not knowing who the next head coach could be at LSU. And that's kind of what he told me. He said, hey, I just got to, I loved everything about Georgia. He described the relationship with Georgia as perfect, quote unquote, perfect. He said he absolutely loved it, but he's kind of in wait and see mode right now, just seeing what's going to go on with LSU.
I think there's a lot of guys in wait and see mode, Demario being one of them. I think we had Brent Weimer, who is a watcher of the POS show, shouting that out while we're on here. He watches the POS show, but he asked, about Isaiah Bond. And he's a Florida commit. There's a lot of guys right now.
He decommitted today.
Right. Well, yes, of course. Yeah.
Decommitted.
Yeah. But he was, but there's a lot of guys right now that big time programs, LSU and Florida. I mean, normally, and before
huge jobs.
Yeah. Before Georgia took Florida's best commits, and there's still a couple more for Georgia to get there. If all things go well for Kirby Smart, which I think they will. But anyways, huge jobs. But you've got guys like Demario who's sitting there going, I like LSU. What do I do? You got the quarterback down at Florida. What does he do? He put out a tweet saying, hey, I'm still here, but I want to see who the new coach is. I'm going to be curious to know how
Jaden Gibson, wide receiver that Georgia recruited. He did the same thing.
I'm just going to be curious to know, Blaine, these coaches are getting fired. It seems like faster and faster each year. I mean, Coach O was out after 6-7 weeks, maybe. I mean, it was a short leash. He's still obviously there, but he's a lame duck coach. He's going for it on fourth down and doing whatever he wants to do. But I'm
Playing
just
with
curious.
house money.
Yeah, he's playing with house money, man. It's going to be interesting to see how he finishes off the season. But I'm just curious to know how this affects recruiting and how it's going to affect recruiting moving forward. We've seen coaches get fired at the end of the year, but now ADs are having to do it so much earlier because of early signing day, Blaine, that it's one of those weird things where it's like, we have to get a new coach in before early signing day to try to get a class, but you're letting your coach go midway through the season. It's a weird timeline now, whereas you used to have February, you had that time after the season. You don't have that anymore.
Well, and you would think that USC and LSU, the ones that did the firing the earliest, you think they would already have, okay, we got our guy in place, we're ready to roll, so they could get a head start on that recruiting to kind of keep the guys that are already in their class and not, but they haven't. And I think the stability that's in the Georgia program, what Kirby Smart has kind of put as he kept talking today about, it's a foundation as a program, right? You got to have a solid foundation. And he again took another, I don't know if it was an intended little jab there.
Everything Kirby does is intentional, Blaine. You know this.
At Mullen on the way out or whatever, but he was like, you always got to be recruiting. I mean, recruiting is the foundation of the everything's calculated with Kirby Smart. There's absolutely, he mentioned the city of Houston in there in his press conference today, and my mind immediately went to, okay, what recruits in Houston other than Julian Humphrey? I'm like, that's a message to somebody. Who's he
cryptic.
Yeah. So I was like, how close is Dylan Raiola, the 2024 quarterback, school to Houston, Texas? I'm automatically trying to connect dots because Kirby is very, very intentional, like you said, and all that. But Demario Tolan, a guy who has versatility, like I said, plays outside now, could move to inside. Glenn Schumann doing the main recruiting there on him. He really, really enjoyed the visit. But like I said, we've just talked about it. He's in wait and see mode. We'll see, Tennessee, Florida State, other schools that he's interested in as well if things go south at LSU. But it's all about that hire. But he wants to sign before. He wants to sign on early signing day, Paul, and they're running out of time to make a decision here.
That's what I'm saying. So you're gonna have guys like Demario, and you're gonna have other guys from other schools that their head coach is fired. They want to sign an early signing day. They want to get in. They want to early enroll. They want to play. That's what they've been told this whole time. Hey, go ahead and commit to us now, Blaine. If you commit to us now, you can come in January. You can earn your spot. So these kids are ready to do that, and there's no head coach to do it for.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And Georgia's class is it's at 23 right now.
Yeah.
There's going to be, a couple guys, it happens every year, right? A couple guys drop off, a couple more guys get added, but Georgia's at 23 right now. I don't know. Let me go back over here. Let me do a little digging. But I don't know if there's another class that has that many commits right now. There's a couple.
Well, Notre Dame and Penn State have the commits, but nowhere near the amount of. They have Notre Dame has 0 5-stars and Penn State has 1 5-star, whereas in Georgia's 23 commits, they have 6 5-stars.
That's what I'm saying. So there's not that many schools that are up to 23 already, Blaine. So there's going to be some hard conversations Curry's going to have with current commits, because there's too many guys they're still going after right now to make this class and to make it what it is. I just clicked for fun purposes. I clicked on total, and Army has 60 kids committed. Navy has 44, and Air Force has 32.
Are you kidding me?
I'm serious. I looked at it on Rival. There's 60 kids committed to Army.
Yeah, that's got to be some kind of weird.
It's a weird
different type of scholarship going on there, academic scholarship, something like that, because I don't think they're going to have that much turnover on that roster. I could be wrong.
But listen, there are 60 kids committed to Army, but I think it's because it's Army, anyway.
Yeah. So have a little bit of difference there, but you look at the point disparity right now. Alabama, of course, with 19 commits, but they're down at 26 26-23 on the points. Georgia's up over 3,000. Paul, before we get, go on, I don't want to talk about Sean Washington next, and it is pronounced Sean. It looks like Sean, but it's pronounced Sean. I've figured that out. Sean Washington, before I talk about him, do you remember a time this early or Georgia crossing the 3,000 threshold? I mean, it's pretty early to get up there. We're good. They're 3.5, 4 weeks almost from signing day, and it's getting up there pretty high.
I mean, to put it in perspective, when Georgia was number one in, I think 2020, they had 3,055, and that was with 25. Obviously, Rivals counts the top 20 commits to make it even. I'm looking back at 2019 when Georgia, it's 3063. I mean, there's no way Georgia's been this high ever. They're already at 3016. I mean, they could be on pace for their best class ever. Now, would it be the Rivals' best class ever? I don't know. I mean, you're talking about there's some pretty hefty Alabama classes back in the day, and I think even last year. But no, in my 8 years of covering the team, have they been this highly ranked and this many points in terms of Rivals points? No. And the craziest part of it all is there's still some guys that are like low 3 stars that can come off the bottom, and the Rivals recruiting rankings or algorithm come off the bottom. You get a couple more 5 stars or really high 4 stars, and that number really shoots up really quick.
No doubt. And a lot of these questions that we're about to hit on the vault here are centering around how some of this is going to play out and things like that. So let's go ahead right off the bat. Let me take off this scrolling one down at the bottom here and add. So Paul, why don't you go ahead and see what I guess it's I can never pronounce this. It's K Roking
Croaking
Croaking 1 2 3. Go ahead and read that.
Hey Blaine, how does the D-line class finish? Still favorite for Christian Miller, or has the West News and Bama offer impacted that, and we pursue Canu instead?
Yeah,
Sean Washington or D Walker being considered.
Yeah, Sean Washington or Deion Walker being considered at nose guard. So here's the thing, Tyree West, it seems like he's doing some heavy flirting with Florida State, and I just want to say that there's always 2 sides to a relationship, right, Paul? So
I'm just
going to kind of leave it at that. Who knows how that's going to end up ultimately playing out. If you're over on the vault, you've kind of seen what we've had to say about that and some things that may be imminent. Kristen Miller, I would say, Paul, is very, very much so a priority target for Georgia at this point. He reminds me so much of a Devontae Wyatt type player right now. He's got that thick lower half build and is explosive off the line of scrimmage. And he just reminds me a ton of Devontae Wyatt. Alabama definitely is coming in. And Paul, as well as I do, anytime that Georgia and Alabama are going head to head, you can never, count out Nick Saban at any point in time. But I think Georgia might have a lot of momentum on their side when it comes to D-line play at the moment.
Well, that, and, it seems like in years past, right? Georgia's always, it's been like a 65-35. Alabama gets 65% of the kids. Georgia gets 35. That they're going head to head against. And there's not a lot of them really, Blaine, that they truly go head to head against. If you go back and look, there's not a ton of kids on Alabama's roster that Georgia was like number 2. And there's not a ton of kids on Georgia's roster where Alabama was number 1. It's just a weird thing. You would think there's a ton more. But I think that tide's finally turning now, pun intended a little bit there, because Georgia, I mean, right now, for everything that we're talking about, Georgia's number 1 team in the nation. Their defense is suffocating. These guys are looking at it. Kirby, it took Dabo however many years to get over the hump at Clemson, right? And then he could get any kid he wanted, but it had to be a high character kid and all this stuff. But anyways, that's a different show. But but it took Dabo a while. Once Kirby gets over this hump, and I know Georgia fans are so ready for it, man. A lot of Georgia fans, I was not even born. I wasn't even a thought in my mother's eye the last time Georgia won a national championship. Exactly. Okay. And there's a ton of fans out there that are like that. But once Georgia makes that jump, these battles between Alabama, you're going to see it really come down to like a true 50-50. And I think Georgia takes over the lead in terms of trying to recruit. Georgia's facilities are unbelievable, Blaine. The money they've put into this program since Kirby Smart has been here is unbelievable. I mean, it's that no other program around the nation, in my opinion, has the facilities that Georgia does.
Yeah, it's a definite advantage for them on the recruiting end of things. I tend to think that Georgia still leads for Kristen Miller. I think I would not be as confident on Hero Canoe. I think I've always been of the opinion that he'll end up elsewhere besides Georgia. I've just never thought that. I think he gets kind of, like Walter Nolan did. He goes somewhere and he's on a visit high for a couple of days and things look good. And then, but it always kind of comes right back. Then Oklahoma, Ohio State, those kind of guys, I think have always been real heavily in the mix there. And my opinion, this is my opinion only, I think he fits better in that type of program. Maybe a personality wise thing or something like that. I just think he does. Sean Washington, I think Georgia really, really likes. I think Trey Scott likes him as a player, likes his size. I do think him or Walker One is being considered as a true nose guard type deal to be paired up with Bear Alexander. Because to be honest with you, you got true nose guards who are, typical guys that are two gap players, and then you've got transcendent players, right? Like Jordan Davis, who are more than they're a nose, but they're more than a nose, right? Barry Alexander's more than a nose. Well, you also need depth, right? Kirby Smart also talks about depth, and Sean Washington is a guy who, when he played at he played at Warren Erickson his junior year, the same school that Cedric Von Prawn's from. Impressive. I mean, the guy's impressive. There's been some things that he's had to work through this year. Not played his senior year of high school ball, but he's been working on getting some academic stuff and everything. And he was out at Georgia for his official visit here. Talked to him. I'm going to have a piece coming out on UGA Sports. So another reason to be a member of UGA Sports. That's going to be coming out first thing in the morning. I can tell you that went very, very well. That meeting there with him and Trey Scott and Kirby Smart. So we'll be having some information come out on Sean Washington in the morning. Really like where Georgia stands there, and he's a young man who's hungry. So Paul, let's move on to our next one here. You're gonna love this one.
Oh, okay, all right. Let's see. Dogfan34 says, how hard do we go after Elias Ricks and some of the UF players that might look to leave their respective colleges?
Well, Paul, I'm going to defer to you on this one. So you put on your portal man hat. If you got to be the portal administrator for the University of Georgia, how hard would you be going after Elias Ricks?
Pretty damn hard, Blaine. To be honest with you, I mean, this guy is a game changer. I mean, him and Derek Stingley, helped, tremendously for LSU past few years. And yeah, I mean, but at the same time, Blaine, you don't want to. I know this sounds so weird because but you don't want to bring in Ricks and then lose a guy, that you could potentially bring in. I'm telling you right now, and I told a buddy this, we were talking about Georgia football today, and we were kind of laughing about Dan Mullen getting fired. And I said, look, man, there's going to be, and I'm glad this question came up because there's going to be so many people that are transferring, especially with this COVID year of eligibility, that it's going to be something that we've never seen before, Blaine. And Kirby is going to use every one of those transfer spots. He's going to use everything that he can to his advantage to win football games. And that's what, Kirby does. He's always recruiting, but he's always looking forward too. He's very forward thinking guy, especially when it comes to roster management. He's probably one of the best in the country at it. It's going to be interesting because guys like Elias Ricks, he's probably the top of the food chain in terms of people that are going to be in the portal, but you're going to see a ton of names that you'll remember from 2-3 years ago recruiting that you were like, wasn't Georgia after that guy? Oh, damn, he went over there and did that. Oh, well, we have a need at defensive end. Oh, well.
Wait, didn't somebody's brother used to play here at Georgia?
Yeah, it's like,
you never know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, was it like Oja something? I don't know. It's Oju. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a ton of guys, man. I mean, and you don't turn down Elias Ricks. There's no way if Elias Ricks wants to come to your program, do you say no? It's just you have to look at roster management. And
Carlos agrees here.
Yeah, Carlos. Yeah, thank you, Carlos. I think he might have wrote it before I said it, but you don't turn them down, man. I mean, you don't. And are there any UF players that might look to leave? Is there anybody on UF's team, Blaine, that could start at Georgia?
Well, here's my thing is, I'm sure there's some good players there at Florida, but when it comes down to it right now, depends on which ones would want to leave, first of all, because I think some of those guys, people think, oh, just enter the portal. Well, there's a lot that goes into that for a young man. I mean, it's uprooting not only your football career, but it's uprooting. Okay, you've probably made friends there at the university. You might like your living situation, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot that goes into it. Having to think that, and quite honestly, Georgia's been recruiting at such a higher level than Florida for the past several years now. That's one reason Dan Mullen got the axe, right? The recruiting. It's not recruiting season during the season, right, down there at Florida. So, but it's always recruiting season at Georgia. So that's one reason that he's gone down. There. I'm seeing some people talk about Gervin Dexter. Yeah, he's
a name. Yeah,
he's a name, but I think Georgia, what they're doing on the defensive interior, through recruiting alone, and also maybe some other options out there across the country that could be there. We'll see. We'll see who ends up. But I definitely think they go very, very hard after Elias Ricks for sure. Our next question here, I'll get this one, Paul. It says, realistic UGA fan, 1191 version 2.0. Off the top of your heads, how many dudes do you think Georgia loses to the portal? It's been hinted at by the insiders that we will lose some, any particular position groups. You're going to lose at least 2 at quarterback. I mean,
you think so?
At least 2. At least 2 quarterbacks are gone out of there. I could even see maybe, I know they're going to lose, probably lose Tyndall and N'Kobe and Quay Walker to the draft, but I could even see maybe some more linebackers getting out there, depending on who they bring in, in terms of a freshman class. There could be some of those guys get out of there. But
I think O-line.
Oh,
there's
O-line.
A couple guys on the O-line that might be not asked to leave, but maybe asked to look around and see if there's other colleges that could use them. He wants
offensive line for sure. Offensive tackle, they're Georgia's stacked at O tackle. I mean, so that could be a position as well. But I would say, what do you if you had to over under the number of Georgia loses on the what do you think?
8.5, 9.5.
Yeah, I think they're they lost, I think 11 this last offseason to the portal.
Yeah,
was how many they lost. So I think it's a couple less.
Yeah, it's probably a couple less, but there's probably going to be some names on there that, you're looking at like, damn, I thought he was going to be a player at Georgia. He just hadn't got the right opportunity, but that's what happens when you're recruiting 4- and 5-star kids all the time, Blaine. There's going to be some kids that get passed up, and you're going to remember his recruitment and be like, oh, well,
the portal gives and it takes away, right?
It does indeed. It does indeed.
That is how it goes. Go ahead and read off this next one there for us, Paul.
Old Jason G17 says, who is the most likely wide receiver not on UGA's commit list to become a dog? This is interesting. Very interesting with the news today, Blaine. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think Georgia's going to be right in there, Georgia and Alabama, for Isaiah Bond. That is going to be one, I think, that's head-to-head at the, out of Buford, of course, Georgia, but it being an in-state school. And they haven't had ton of success with Buford over the years, but they really recruited hard. Some guys that were in this class, like Jake Pope ended up going to Buford, not at Georgia, but he's a teammate of Isaiah Bonds. But when it comes down to Bolden, the 2024 wide receiver that's there, Georgia is very, very high on him, and he's high on Georgia. So I mean, they're making some inroads there, just like they're making inroads at Grayson. So Isaiah Bond is a name I like a lot. Shaz Preston, I think it's all going to come down to, does he in fact show up for a official visit between December 4th and December 15th? And if he does, I really like Georgia's ability to recruit on campus. And I think when you get an official visit that close to early signing day, it could really help out. So I like those 2 names a lot for Georgia. And then another one that I refuse to rule out because of how close it was, Paul, Luther Burden. I think literally a couple hours before he ended up committing to Missouri, I thought, I think everybody was thinking this thing could be a UGA deal. I think even people in the building were thinking this was a UGA deal a couple hours before. So we'll see what ends up happening there. You never know till the ink's dry, Paul, on recruitments like that.
Yeah, no. And had you asked Luther Burden 3 hours before he announced, he probably could have told you something different too. I mean, I think that his I think that his decision date was made, obviously. I don't think his mind was made up yet. And that's kind of my story. I'm sticking to it. I don't have any insider knowledge on that, but I've seen recruitments, in the past that have gone the same similar way. It just happened to be on National Signing Day when, the ink has to dry. For Luther, luckily for Luther, he still has time. But what about Evan Stewart?
Yeah, Evan Stewart is a guy that's out there. I wouldn't, but when he's saying most likely, I'm not going to list him in that most likely group. I list that as a group of. So you're telling me there's a chance, right? That kind of deal. Georgia's still in communication, but I'm not. I wouldn't put a significant amount of money on that one. That matters.
How many more wide receivers do you see Georgia taking? Just one?
If they're the right ones, I think they could take two. If it was two explosive guys, like if all of a sudden an Isaiah Bond and an Evan Stewart all said, hey, we want to come, they'd take both of them, or Shaz Preston and Isaiah Bond, they'd probably take both of them. But, I think it's going to come down to a either or type situation there, just one of, 2-3 guys type deal. So we will see on the wide receiver recruiting. 2020, this is from Pine Tree One. Any big 2023 commits on the horizon? Are we favorites? Is Georgia favorites for Overton and AJ Harris? I in terms of LT Overton, there was the whole talk about and it was heavily considered the reclassification. I think that is wisely been axed right there. I don't think he's going to pull the trigger on that. I do think Georgia's in good shape there. AJ Harris is a guy that Georgia's, prominently been involved with, but at some point, you got to wonder, is he going to, look elsewhere with, a lot of the talent that's stacking up ahead of him and stuff like that. But that may not bother him. He may be the kind of that ultimate competitor that doesn't care who's there, so we'll see. We'll see, Paul, what happened there. I think Jonell Aguero is a guy that we have. A lot of people on UGA Sports have had future cast in for 2023. And then, of course, you saw, as you mentioned earlier, Tony Mitchell is out here posting the red on reds in his latest visit. And he's visited Athens a couple of times this year. He's here for the South Carolina game. And then he was back this weekend as well. So I think those are some 2023 guys that you would definitely want to keep an eye on. And then I wrote a piece on Mr. Justice Haynes today. Did you see the performance of where he went off in the second round ball? 253 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and then 79-yard screen pass he takes to the house for a touchdown. So the Georgia legacy getting it done. You have to feel like Georgia's going to do everything they can to try to bring Justice Haynes in.
Yeah, I think he could be a big leader in that class too. I'm glad you brought up the future prediction or future cast for Janelle, because I didn't have mine in yet, so I just put it in. So I appreciate it. I think I left behind on that one for a second.
Yeah, so you got to pay attention to the group chat, Paul.
Right, I know, man. I know. It's tough. But no,
fixing roofs.
Yeah, I know. Trying to make some money. Justice Hayes, man, I think he could be one of those guys for your class of 2023, almost kind of like how Julian Humphrey has become this onset of Richard LeCount 2.0 in terms of recruiting for his class. I think that Justice Hayes could very well be that. And I don't know if he would be the type that's getting on Twitter all the time, but he very well could be one of those guys that's silent behind the scenes. You have Pierce Sperlin, who can head up that class, and he's very verbal about it. But you also need one of those guys who's not so verbal about it, but carries himself. He has that presence. I think Justice has that same presence. I've seen it. I've seen it around him. I've seen it when he plays with his team. I've seen it at camp settings. He just has that presence where people gravitate towards him. He doesn't have to talk a whole lot. People gravitate towards him a lot. Oscar Delp's mom, I remember her walking up to him and just talking to him. Hey, how are you? It just is it's that presence that he has. Yeah. And, I think he's one of those guys that could be a big time 2023 commit for Georgia. And I think eventually, it's just a matter of not if, but when the legacy commit comes home.
No doubt. PA Dog 610. He asked about DeMario Tolan, his visit, possibility of flipping him. We kind of already talked about that a little bit. I think he's really just kind of in wait and see mode on LSU's coaching deal, and then he's going to assess where he is after that. So we can kind of hit that one real quick. Pine Tree back with another question. Pine Tree 1 here says, Bama or UGA for Shamar James. Or is Georgia still in the hunt for Shamar Stewart? Is he heavy A&M? I think the pendulum's kind of swung towards A&M when it comes to Shamar Stewart. I like Georgia for Shamar James right now. I just think there's too much Florida to Georgia, former commit pipeline stuff going right now. Paul, I feel like that's kind of inevitable as well.
Yeah, I would be surprised if Shamar James isn't a silent right now, honestly. I just think, and that's not me putting anything crazy out here. That's just me talking. I'm just a guy that runs a POS show on Saturday nights.
Well, you see the interaction he's having with guys like Julian Humphrey and a bunch of other of the Georgia current commits online. So he's definitely not being shy about, putting some of that conjecture out there.
As far as Shamar Stewart, I think Shamar's another guy just like Evan Stewart that Georgia's going to fight till the very end to at least keep in contact with. He's one of those players you want to keep in contact with no matter what. Does it swing? Is it swinging towards A&M for both those Stewarts? Yeah, probably. But I don't think Georgia's going to give up. And especially if they get on a run, if they win the SEC championship game, I'm sure, there's guys that coaches are already like, hey, this is who you call, this is who you call, this is who you call. We're in the locker room and FaceTime them, I'm sure Shamar Stewart is probably one of those guys that they would probably call.
Yeah, there's going to be so much pandemonium going on in that locker room if Georgia slays, the Giants, figuratively speaking, taking down Alabama. It's going to be hard. They're going to have some GAs or multiple GAs or student assistant to remind them, because they're going to be partying in that locker room if that happens for sure. All right, here we go. The question of the night, Paul. Rock C82. Please comment on Roddy's future cast prediction for Travis Hunter. Here's all I'm going to say. I can't go too far into this, but Paul, like I said, I've told everybody you've been around longer at UGA Sports than I have. When Roddy dips his toe into the recruiting realm and he comes out with something of this nature, it seems that Roddy, he doesn't do so lightly. He doesn't do so just without feeling confident about something.
No, man, and that's one thing we've never done at UGAsports.com. We don't go for clicks, man. We have subscribers. We don't have to put out clickbait headlines to get you to look at stuff. If Roddy's putting something like that out there, then it's it's pretty serious. I don't know how much you want to give away on this show, Blaine. So I'm gonna let you kind of run with it, and I'll piggyback off of you.
Just gonna. Obviously on the Vault, we will be following this situation every day, I'm sure, between now and signing day. But this is something that how much movement there'll be, publicly and things like that, I don't know. But I know Georgia will not stop, has not stopped to recruiting Travis Hunter, and he's like absolutely number one on the board in terms of who they want, how he would impact their program. It's right there. So yeah,
it's right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a conversation with a buddy though, Blaine, and I want to get your opinion on this. Obviously, Travis Hunter's being recruited as a defensive back. Isn't there more of a need though if you get Singletary, you get Humphrey, you get Kamari Wilson, you get oh my goodness, my mind went blank.
You got Kamari Wilson, you got Humphrey, you got Singletary, you've got MGK who be coming off a ACL, you got Ja'Cory Thomas, Malachi Starks is out there, of course, for the
So wouldn't it? And I'm just talking, right? Wouldn't Travis Hunter playing wide receiver be like the next big guy for Georgia at wide receiver? He'd be the biggest splash at wide receiver since George Pickens.
Yeah, I think you're going to, regardless of who they sign, I think you're going to see him play both ways at Georgia. I don't think that's just lip service. I think he's the next like Champ Bailey type performer. Like a lot of people,
you think there's still room for that in college football?
There is a guy with like Travis Hunter. I've just never seen a guy that has that. You have to have a certain amount of stamina about you, right? You have to have it and I don't know how big of a soccer fan you are, Paul. I know this obviously football show, and I don't know if we're going to be get chastised for, but to me, he's got that elite soccer player almost type build. Those guys who can run for days and just not get tired. And plus, Travis Hunter loves playing the game of football. Like, absolutely. I'm not just talking about saying, oh, this is what he's doing to, get by an education. Maybe it'd be nice if I play in the league one day. Like, it is part of his fabric, his DNA, like the game of football. Like, God created that young man to play football, and he wants to be on the field as much as possible. I think you will truly see him used both ways wherever he goes. If he stays at Florida State, if he flips to the University of Georgia, wherever he's at, I think he'll play both ways at the next level. I'm not saying every down, I'm not saying a majority of the time, but there will be a package of plays on offense that I think he will be utilized on, because there is a lot of demand mentally and physically. And he's not Superman by any means, but he's one of the more talented prospects that I've seen in a long, long time.
I just think that with everybody coming in at that defensive back that you have right now, I think him and Starks are going to be, if he does end up flipping to UGA, it's going to be interesting to see where Starks and Hunter line up, because you don't want to have both of those guys on the same side of the ball. And both those guys are very special on both sides of the ball. So I think you would have a very, very loaded defensive backfield if you had Starks and Hunter along with those guys. So I'm curious, who flips over, and Hunter would be so good at wide receiver. It would be almost cruel to not see him there.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that Kirby Smart always talks about, he wants to be explosive, right? He wants to make sure that he's putting guys in position to make explosive plays and things like that. And there's no more explosive athlete, I don't think, in the class of 2022.
No, absolutely not.
Hunter. Yeah,
absolutely not.
He does a lot of really good things. Now I've got another question here from ASU Dog. He's saying, who are the player comps for Deion Walker and Sean Washington? I've been thinking over that, in terms of going a straight player comp. I mean, Sean Washington is a guy who is very, very comfortable at being a run stopper. Like, he's working consistently on his pass rush to get through there. But Sean he's upward of 3 bills now. I mean, he's sitting up there pretty good. Warren Brinson was a guy that came out that was a taller guy that had some quick twitch ability, and also was pretty strong. He was up over 300 pounds when he came through. And he's now starting to see, he's a guy who needed to work, right? He needed to be in that Georgia program. I can see Sean being it similar to that and that kind of thing. He doesn't have maybe some of the length in terms of the arms as Warren Brinson, but he's a powerful guy, a guy that can be effective at stopping the run. And has to work his way up in terms of similar, not as tall, but similar to a Ingram Dawkins that was there last year, right? A guy who is explosive off the line, a guy that is able to play. He got to play in the Charleston Southern game. So you're going to see guys, but these need to be guys that are, when he comes in, he's going to probably end up playing more upwards towards that 320 mark. They're going to put that weight on him. He's going to eat, he's going to lift, he's going to train, and he's going to be that true nose guard type guy if Sean is part of this class. Now, Deion Walker, he's just massive. I mean, he's a guy who's 6 foot, getting up there 6'7" and well up over 300 pounds. So I don't know how many guys you can actually compare him to. But Deion Walker is a guy who him and Sean are both there for a reason on official visits, and it was again. And Jed, I believe, was talking to him this evening, so he'll have a report on him soon on UGA Sports as well. But Paul, we've talked about this class. We've talked about some of the guys on official visits, and Georgia's sitting right now, 23 commitments, 6 5-stars, up over 3,000 in points, number 1 in the Rivals rankings. And they're nowhere near close to done. I think that you're going to see Georgia do something in this recruiting class by getting upwards of, who knows, with the transfers, they could end up over of 30. They could get up 32 guys maybe in this class, and that would just be a massive injection of talent into an already talented roster. Yeah, no, I mean, nowhere near done. How many weeks till signing day? Early signing day? December 15th. So what we got 2.5 or 3.5 weeks, something along that line there. Yeah, so I mean, there's going to be some
there's going to be some decommits. There's going to be some commits. There's going to be a lot of names being floated around. That's why it's so crucial to be on the vault over there on UGAsports.com, because there's going to be a lot of new names that come up about guys like Deion Walker, Sean Washington. You know, they're going to start picking up momentum. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to kind of watch.
2022 quarterback Robbie Roper that was there from Roswell.
Yeah, what's up with that?
And he defeated North Cobb. Him and Roswell defeated North Cobb. It was a heavy, favorite. They of course, North Cobb is where MGK was playing. Denalon Morsat is over there playing. They've got Malachi Singleton, a 2023 quarterback that Georgia's recruiting as well. But Robbie Roper put up over 300 yards, had five total touchdowns in that game, and they upset him. And now they're going to face the defending state champs in Grayson. So Georgia commit Griffin Scroggs, who I talked to after his game on Friday. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But I think you're correct when you're talking about when that dam breaks, right? When Georgia is able to get over the hump on Alabama, it's already recruiting's at just an unbelievable level. But you got to think what kind of bump comes from that. It'll be very, very interesting to see. And Paul will have it all covered over on UGA Sports.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to follow, fun to cover, fun to watch. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen recruiting at this high of a level at Georgia consistently. I mean, ever, first off, but at a consistent level to where this year, I want to say back in the summer, folks are like, man, here we go again. It's not starting off so hot. This guy's going there and this guy's going here, and none of them are coming to Athens. And then it's like patience. And now that the snowball is in full effect, that thing's rolling downhill. You don't want to step in front of it. You see what happened to Dan Mullen. He stepped in front of that thing, and now he's trying to be an OC, at a high school around here. I mean, it's that quick. It hits you that fast.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Smart is not looking to play second fiddle to anybody right now, and we'll see what ends up happening in the rest of this class. But we wanted to say once again, thank you to Dead Soxy for being a partner with UGA Sports, sponsoring the show. Remember, 56% discount until midnight. So go check them out. Do us a favor, hit subscribe. We're up over 20,000. We're almost at 21,000 subscribers now on the UGA Sports YouTube channel. And that's because of you guys. Be a friend, tell 3 friends, make sure to share with the content. We got, overreaction, post-game overreaction show with Paul after the games. We got, Coach Donnan with Roddy and Dane on Tuesdays at 12. So we will see, all kinds of good content. Now Dane and Brent are doing their, film don't lie on here, Paul. So the YouTube channel is getting more and more content. So make sure you subscribe, hit the like button for us. And guys, we will catch you next Monday night on Georgia Recruiting, Rumors versus Facts. Appreciate you jumping on here with me, Paul. I appreciate it. Last minute, man. Pinch hitter, team player.
Always. You got it.
See you guys next time.
May the force be with you.
Yeah.